the burning in your spirit, welling deep inside. You got a beast inside. I know it's hard to tame it, it's harder to explain it. Can't even get a picture, no matter how you frame it. There's so much pressure with all these external stresses, and undoubtedly try to touch you. Gotta push them through the feeling, even though your mind is reeling. The power's deep inside and leads you if you were willing. Got the power. Can you feel the power? This is the hour to release your power. Got the power. Can you feel the power? This is the hour to release your power. Got the power. Can you feel the power? This is the hour to release your power. Got the power. Can you feel the power? This is the hour to release your power.
Well, welcome everybody back to another episode of the Power Shut Up podcast. This is actually the first month we've completed starting off season 3. So we're getting ready to go into October. So we're ending September with a bang. So I'm excited to introduce our guest. But before we get started, I just want to do some shout outs. You all know how I am about celebrating. It doesn't take much. It can be just because it's Thursday. But I wanted to say welcome back to season 3. And happy birthday to anybody who's celebrating a birthday today. And you know how I feel about love. So happy anniversary to anybody who got engaged or is celebrating love. And of course, everybody's not always celebrating every day. So sending up prayers to anybody who's going through some difficult times, and just a reminder that you are not alone and we are thinking about you. So sending prayers up. I also wanted to make sure before we get started, because I know this is going to be a fun-packed hour with our guests, but I wanted to say thank you to everyone who continues to support the Power Shut Up podcast. It's been 3 seasons. And a little background for those who are just new to the platform. I actually wrote my first book that I call my baby. I have been co-author on some books, but the Power Shut Up was in 2019. And then I kicked off the podcast, and we have a symposium that we do where we have guests come in, and we have events in person. We've done it virtually as well. So I'm all about effective communication, and I think it applies in every stage of life, whatever you are doing on the job, with your kids, and social settings. So that's kind of what we talk about here. But at the same time, we have amazing guests come on and talk about the wonderful things that they are doing in the community. Again, I would like to share that, you know, sometimes TikTok gets a bad rap, but I have met some amazing people on TikTok. And tonight is another guest who I just saw his page out there on TikTok, and I was like, I got to get him on the show. So I wanted to actually introduce you to our guest, because I want him to get into sharing kind of his journey. And of course, you all know we're talking about the power of resilience. So before we get started, let me tell you who's in the room. Okay, so y'all know. So I want to introduce you to, and I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name, Tiran. Am I saying it correctly?
Yep. Good evening. Good evening. Hey, how you doing, Doctor? You are Tiran. You got it right.
Good. Tiran Jackson is a dynamic speaker, author, and visionary entrepreneur. He's not just a survivor, he's a thriver. His own profound journey, marked by personal tragedy, loss, and triumphant resilience, is a testimony to the human spirit's indomitable will. Is a testament to the human spirit's indomitable will to overcome. Starting his career as an engineer, Tiran was on the path to success, but life had other plans. Through transformational experiences, he discovered his true purpose, inspiring others to find their own path. Tiran's authenticity and vulnerability now serve as guiding lights for those seeking resilience, courage, and strength. So today, he doesn't just inspire, he empowers. Tiran's mission is to help you rediscover your authentic self, embrace your vulnerabilities, and set forth boldly towards your dreams. Connect with Tiran and embark on your own journey of resilience. And we're going to share more about his website. We'll put that on the screen. But welcome, Tiran, to the Power Shut Up podcast.
Dr. Lisa, it's a pleasure to be here. I am happy, honored, and blessed to be able to be sharing this platform with you this evening.
I am excited. And like I told you before, thank you for your yes, because you could be anywhere else. So I really appreciate it. And I really want to get into things because I know we only have an hour. So I want you to share because I want to get into the power of resilience, but I do want you to kind of give us a little bit of background on how you got to be on stage talking about the power of resilience.
Well, I got a very, very heavy story, and I'm going to tell everybody out there if you might want to take a seat for this one because it's something you'll probably never hear. I tell people when I go speak that I've got it's a bold statement, but it's a story that you'll never forget. First, I want to start off with take you way back. I guess it was almost 25 years ago. I was in college at Tennessee State University. And while I was there, I met a young lady who, I thought would be somebody who I was going to have a future with. And it turned out to be a young lady named Malika, who we met and we got to know each other and realized we had a strong connection. And that strong connection led to us dating. And then eventually, after getting out of college, deciding that we wanted to spend our lives together. So I met my sweetheart as I was getting ready to get out of college. And we started our lives actually in Indiana, where I was actually working at Rolls-Royce as an engineer. She started out as a school teacher. We started where we were. A couple years later, got married. A couple years after that, had our first son and started living our life and really starting to figure out where we were wanting to go. After a little bit, she decided to move into a different area. I kept climbing the ladder as an engineer for Rolls-Royce, and I thought that as I was doing this is what I was supposed to be doing. We were growing our love together, growing our relationship, brought our son Cameron into the world, and we're raising him. And after a while, we thought that we were doing well, but we wanted to get back closer to family. So we moved back down south. Both of us were from the South, moved to Atlanta, continuing it to grow our careers. Me, like I said, as an engineer, moving up as an engineering director. And her going from where she started out as a teacher, teaching students, to actually being in college, helping students get their first job, to actually on the flip side went corporate and started working to help get the students who were getting out of college to get their first opportunity. And really taking the responsibility of making sure that Black and brown kids were getting fair shakes to be able to get that first step into the corporate experience. She kept moving up doing this. And as we kept going and growing our relationship, we were making plans for what our future was going to look like. And before we knew it, we were at this place where we were celebrating or about to celebrate our 15th wedding anniversary.
Oh, wow.
And figuring out where we were going to go and what we were going to do. Now, at this time, she was working for a major corporation that was based out of Chicago, and we're based out in Atlanta. So every couple of weeks, she would have to travel to Chicago for a week while me and our son Cameron would be at home. And then when she would come back, I would travel and go and visit my customers and do what I needed to do. And so that was sort of the stage that we were at, but both very busy, both doing a lot. But as we were approaching our 15th wedding anniversary, we were really looking forward to spending time together, reconnecting, figuring out what our next 15 years look like, and our 15 years after that, and so on. And so as we were approaching this time, we had made a decision to, out of all the places in the world that we wanted to go and spend our anniversary, we took a trip to the Bahamas, a small island called Exuma. And the day before we were going on this trip, I dropped our 12-year-old son off with his aunt and uncle and said, don't worry, we'll be back in 1 week to pick you up. We'll go on vacation as a family after that. But this was important for mom and dad to get our time together. He was good. He was excited, looking forward to spend time with his aunt and uncle, beat up his cousins, eat ice cream late at night, terrorize their dog. All the things kids get to do when they're not at home with their parents.
Right.
So he was good. And the next day, Malika and I, we went to the Bahamas. We flew to the Bahamas, got to the resort, had a wonderful time. First 2 days, great. Time at the beach, fruity drinks, time at the pool. We were having us an amazing time. On the third day, we decided to leave our resort and we were going to go on an excursion. And part of the allure of being in the Bahamas was Malika wanted to go and do this tour where she actually got to swim with the pigs, which seems crazy, but that was what they were promoting. They had these wild feral pigs that you could go swimming with, and she wanted to take a picture doing that. So I was thinking, okay, well, that's not exactly what I would have wanted to do, but hey, we're going to do it. We're going to make it happen. So we get up that next morning, wake up, get to the edge of our resort where a bus is picking us up and a lot of other passengers to take us to this marina where we will take off and we would take this trip. We get to the marina and we have two choices when we get there. You can either do a half-day, 4-hour trip or a full-day, 8-hour trip. Okay. And both of them, you get to do the same thing. You get to do the same thing, just the one of them is longer. They got a couple other stops and so on. And so Malika and I talked about it. And as we were there, I said that, we only got a couple of days left here on this trip. Let's do the 4-hour tour, because I wanted to go back and go golfing at the resort that afternoon. And she was like, okay, she could fit in a spa trip and all that. So we made the decision to do the 4-hour trip. As we bought our tickets, we walked down the pier, got on the boat that we were supposed to for the 4-hour trip. And at 9 a.m., we took off. When we took off, everything was great. I was having the time of my life with the woman I love, doing an adventurous trip that we were going to enjoy together, which is going to be the highlight for my wife. Little did I know that trip would change my life forever. 5 minutes into the ride, unbeknownst to us, there was a fuel leak that was emanating from the fuel tank. And Malika and I were sitting right above that fuel tank. Something created a spark. And the next thing you know, the boat exploded.
Oh my gosh.
I found myself waking up face down on the surface of a burning boat. As I was starting to come to, I woke up literally because my right leg was on fire. I glanced down and I'm laying on my stomach. As I'm glanced down, I see my ankle bone of my left leg, blood rushing out. As I'm starting to come to, I see people from the second boat, the one that was doing the 8-hour tour. They were not too far away from me, and they were yelling at me, "Get off the boat, get off the boat." I tried to push myself up and I crumbled. Tried to push myself up again, and I didn't know it at the time, but I had a broken right foot, 3rd-degree burns on my right leg, a fractured pelvis, a fractured vertebrae, bruised ribs, a broken collarbone, and I was in and out of consciousness. As I was starting to come to, the only thing that I could do in order to get away from the flames was take my right arm, put my fingertips on my right hand in the ridges on the surface of that boat, and drag myself a couple feet away from the flames until I pass out again. Now, I dragged myself close to the edge of this boat, and, by the grace of God, we were still in fairly shallow water. That other boat wasn't too far away from us. Passengers from that boat risked their lives to swim over and pull me off. I'm grateful that they did, because 3 minutes after they pulled me off, there was a second fuel tank on the boat that exploded.
Gosh.
As they got me on this boat, I started asking, where is Malika? Where is my wife? Well, she was thrown in a different direction as a result of the explosion. There were 10 passengers on this boat. 7 of them were on one side. Malika, I, and one other passenger were on the other side. Malika and this other passenger, they were thrown off the boat. A 3rd boat picked them up and got them to shore. I was the only one that was left on the boat after the explosion. And when they got me to this second boat, I was thinking to myself, I hope that my wife is okay. They get me to shore. This other boat gets Malika and this other passenger to shore, and they get them to the ambulance to take them to the clinic. As far as I'm concerned, I'm laying there, left foot just dangling, blood gushing out. They end up putting me on the back of a pickup truck to take me to this clinic. They got one clinic on this small island, and so that is the best chance for help. Wow. So as I'm riding on the back of this truck, and there was another guy who was with me who I'd met on the way to the marina. He actually happened to be an NFL football player. He played football for the Carolina Panthers, an offensive lineman, remembered details really well. While I'm on the back of that truck, I gave him my mom's phone number, my sister's phone number, the room we were staying at the resort, the safe code where our passports were, all of these things that he was trying to remember, which would play a role later on in all of this. But he kept trying to keep me encouraged and thinking that, okay, my wife was going to be okay and that everything was going to be all right. They get me finally to the clinic, put me on a stretcher, and as they wheel me in, that's when I first hear Malika. I hear her yelling. I hear her suffering. She's screaming. She's in agony, and I can't do anything about it.
Oh, my gosh.
She's in the first bay. This other passenger's in the second bay. They wheel me into the third bay, and there's one doctor at this clinic. And as I'm laying there, I'm trying to be as still as possible so I can try to hear and detect what's going on with Malika. And I start to hear her moans start to lessen. And I'm thinking to myself and hoping to myself that she's okay and that nothing horrible is wrong, but I didn't get a chance to talk to her.
Oh.
When the doctor finally comes over to me, they try to wrap up what's left of my left foot, but he tells me that they can't treat me there and that they're going to send me and this other passenger to the good hospital on the main island. And I ask him about Malika, and he tells me she's going to come later. Now, at that point, I'm thinking to myself, my wife must not be hurt as bad as I am. And because if they're telling me that she's going to come later, then they must be able to treat her injuries there. So I'm a little optimistic, even though I can't believe this tragic occurrence has happened. They put me on an airplane, fly me from Exuma to Nassau, get me to the hospital. And the next thing I know, I'm going through emergency surgery where they're trying to reattach what's left of my left foot to my leg. Wow. I wake up a couple hours later in ICU, and I'm expecting to hear that my wife is there. And as I start to come to, the nurse is in the room. She leaves out to go get the doctors. And as the doctors come in, I ask them, where is Malika? Where is my wife? The two doctors, they look at each other in confusion, and they step out the room for a couple minutes. And I'm thinking to myself, this is the most obvious question I could be asking. She should be here by now. Finally, they come back in, and they tell me, Mr. Jackson, we hate to inform you, but your wife didn't make it. Now, no. I'm thinking to myself, she hasn't made it here yet because that other doctor said she was going to make it. They must have had a problem with the airplane that was taking me there, going back to get her, and they had to refuel or something. So I was just trying to make it come to the conclusion that she just hasn't made it here yet. But they told me no, that she died at that clinic. And they didn't want to tell me that before they put me on the plane to.
Oh, my gosh.
So what was supposed to be a celebratory, momentous, special time for my wife and I turned tragic. Mm-hmm. And I found myself crying myself to sleep that night because I did not believe that this was reality. I went to sleep hoping I would wake up the next day and realizing that this was just a nightmare and I would be able to find Malika again and that this was not the reality. But I woke up the next day and that was what happened. And so while I'm still there, I'm in that hospital that night, having to start piecing the fact that this is my reality. I do something I didn't want to have to do, but I knew I had to do. That 12-year-old boy who I dropped off with his aunt and uncle, I had to get him on the phone and tell him over the phone, son, your mom's never coming home again.
Wow.
To hear Cameron on the other side have to cry and process and be in disbelief and shock, as I'm in shock as well, was one of the most hurtful things that could have happened. In the midst of our conversation, he asked if mom is in heaven, and I told him yes, and that she was going to be our angel looking down on us. And he asked me if I was going to be okay. And I had to lie to him and tell him that I would to keep from taking hope completely away from him.
Right.
And so I told him that I was going to talk to him later that day and that we were going to find a way to get through this. Now, later that day, as I'm still trying to process what's going on, I realized I'm starting to feel worse. Well, they tried to reattach my left foot to my leg. My left foot had gotten infected. Infection started going through my body. My organs started shutting down. And over the matter of about 3 hours, I could see the EKG monitor over my head. And I saw my vital signs go from green to yellow to red.
Wow.
And at that point in time, I started coming to grips with the fact that my wife has been taken away from me. I've broken my son's heart, and now I'm about to be taken as well.
Mm.
They stopped bringing doctors in to treat me and just started bringing priests in to pray over me. And so here I am in my truest state of despair and starting to realize that the next time I close my eyes was going to be the last time I close my eyes.
I can't imagine.
Being broken in that state and trying to come to terms with the fact that my life was about to be over was where I was at that moment. Now, like I said, I went to sleep that night not expecting to wake up the next day, but by the grace of God, I did. But at this time, I'm mad at God. I don't understand why this happened to us, why my wife had to be taken away. But as all this was going on, Chris, who was the gentleman who was riding on the back of that pickup truck with me earlier, he had started getting in contact with my family and explaining what happened. And they started pulling everything that they could to get to the Bahamas to treat me. And when I was thinking that all was lost, my sister, she showed up, and all of a sudden things were being put together to try to get me out of the Bahamas because they couldn't treat me there.
Okay.
And so as all of that was happening, I wake up the next morning, my vital signs still all over the place. I basically get confiscated from their hospital bed and taken to a level 1 trauma center in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where they saw what happened on the news and said that they were going to do everything that they could to try to save my life still.
Okay.
And so I'm basically stolen from the hospital. I get to this hospital. They tell my family we got to do whatever we can to save his life. Go into emergency surgery. They have to amputate my left leg below the knee for me to survive. Over the course of the next 5 days, I go through 9 different surgeries to start putting the pieces of me physically back together, but I'm still emotionally heartbroken. There was one day where I had to go through 5 surgeries in one day, and I was still unstable. But as I was in ICU that day, things started to come to grips to me, come to reality that my wife has been taken, but I'm still going to be here. And I've been praying this whole time, and I'm a spiritual person. I was praying to God, trying to get some understanding why, and he started speaking to me clearly, and he told me a couple of things. He told me that, one, that I had to come to grips with it was Malika's time to come home. She did the work that she was supposed to do here on earth, and it was time for her to move on. I had to come to grips with the fact, yeah, that's a hard thing to have to swallow. But he told me the sooner that I accepted that, the better off I was going to be. He told me the life that I had before, what was my normal, is going to be completely different than what my new normal is going to be. He told me I wasn't going to go back to being an engineer, and that I was going to be a different path that is uncomfortable, unfamiliar to me. Now, Dr. Lisa, I got an undergrad degree in mechanical engineering, a master's degree in engineering. I thought that was my purpose, what I was supposed to be doing. And so I'm thinking this is what I've been created and developed to do. I did my job well, but for him to tell me that this was not what I was supposed to be doing was something that was hard for me to accept and understand.
I'm sure.
He also told me this, that I had a choice to make, to be resilient, that the obstacles I've overcome to still be alive were nothing compared to the obstacles I was going to have to face moving forward. And that I could either feel sorry for myself and struggle to survive, or choose to be resilient and learn to thrive. And so all of these messages were becoming clear to me. He told me if he wanted to, he could have taken my life 3 different times, but he keeping me here for a reason. When that boat exploded, when my vital signs went from green to yellow to red, when I went through and the 5 surgeries and was real unstable, but that he was keeping me here for a reason. And I needed to be obedient and understand what that was.
Amen.
And so that was there too. But ultimately, in the midst of telling me to be resilient, he left me with this about resilience. Resilience is not about regaining what was lost, but reshaping what still remains. And it's what we do with what still remains is going to control the narrative of our life story. And so as broken as I was, physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, that was the moment where Tiran Jackson 2.0 started to be developed. And as I talk a little bit more about what I do now, my business is called Reborn Resilient.
Mm-hmm.
I was reborn the day that then occurred. And if it wasn't for resiliency, I wouldn't be here.
Absolutely.
Moving forward, that was where it began. So
oh, that's
I'll stop. My questions. We can go deeper, but yeah, that was
and I want to this is such an important conversation because I mean the strength that you were able to pull out of this situation, and everything's juggling at the same time because it sounds like everything is happening like so fast, and at the same time you kind of in and out of what's going on because you're trying to just live.
Right.
I'm taking a moment at the same time because that's powerful. But I love what you said about resilience, and that it's not about going back to where you were, but starting from where you are, that is so powerful because I think immediately we go back to, I mean, even in regular life, we go back to trying to be what we were. I even struggle with getting older every day, and I'm still searching for, that feeling of not being in pain from just regular aches and pains. So I couldn't imagine, especially being an engineer and you're already being told before you can get yourself together that you're not going to be able to do what you always plan to do.
Right.
And a 12-year-old son that's got to get through this some kind of way. And you don't have any answers. You just y'all doing this together.
Yeah.
So how long, because this was, what month was this in? How long did it take you to start to recover?
Yeah, this all happened. The incident happened on June 30th of 2018. All of this went over the first couple of days of July. So it's summertime. So my son is out of school and all of this was happening. I ended up being in the hospital for almost 3 weeks, recovering from at least the surgeries. But ultimately, it took a long time for me to get back to a place where I was even functional. As I was, when they let me out of the hospital, and I was a broken mess. I was still in a wheelchair, had a cast on my right foot, missing my left leg, my left shoulder's in a sling. I got a back brace on. They were trying to find a rehab facility to take me in to be able to help me start to heal physically. But I kept getting rejected and denied by different facilities. I kept getting denied because they all kept saying I needed to have 2 functional limbs for them to be able to do something with me.
Really?
And yes. So there were some prominent facilities that were closer to where my family was and closer to what I was familiar with that all said no to working with me because they didn't want me to, I needed to have 2 limbs that I could use for support.
So that makes, I'm trying to make sense of why was that? Did they give you any better explanation? Because that doesn't even make sense to me.
They said I needed to heal to a certain point physically before I could really do physical therapy with them and start to recover. And so, but see, here's the way that, and God works in some ways that we don't understand. As a result of all of that, I ended up having to move in and live with my sister my sister and brother-in-law for about 8 weeks as I started to heal and recover physically till I was going to be able to at least put some weight on my right foot so I could use crutches, and my shoulder was at a point where I could at least do that. During that time, I got more love and I had the opportunity to really start to process what was occurring. It would have been a lot harder for me emotionally to do that at a place where I was just another patient or a number. But I had family, I had some friends come by there. I had people who showed up to help me deal with the emotional heartache as well as give me time and comfort as I was trying to physically recover. Now, during this time, and also, they also brought physical therapists who would come to her house for me to begin working with me to get me back to a place where I could potentially, hopefully one day walk again. So it turned out to work out well, better than what I thought it was when I was denied and rejected. And so what that was it was the first step in restoration. And when I tell people about this, sometimes we need to know that rest is not a weakness, but it's a foundation for our healing to begin. And that was a forced means of having to stop and process what was going on, and having that love around me helped start my healing process in a different way than it would have if I was at one of these major medical facilities.
Around strangers, right?
Yeah. So that ended up, like I said, being a blessing in disguise. And it allowed me during that time, that was when, like I said before, all of my limbs were messed up, but my right arm still worked. I'm right-handed. For whatever reason, I don't know this was why it was that way. But when I had all this time to myself and I was starting to really break down, I was suffering from depression, anxiety, survivor's remorse, guilt. Remember, I said, let's get on this boat. I was really starting to break down. And I never really had a lot of therapy or anything before then, but I was starting to really feel it. I began journaling and writing out my thoughts and feelings, reflecting on beautiful moments that Malika and I had, different situations in life. Little did I know, as I was doing that started out to become my first book, Choosing Resilience. And so it's and I wasn't thinking about that at the time, but it created a way for me to be able to assess how I was truly feeling and start thinking about, okay, what will life look like, and trying to get past, the pain of that loss while I was still physically broken.
And so can I ask you a question? How did you, what made you decide, because had you ever journaled before? What made you decide to journal in your healing process?
Yeah, because I didn't know anything better else to do. And I kept having these thoughts, and in conversation with my sister, she was like, okay, well, you can't do too much while you're here. Here's a notebook. And I would keep notes on stuff before, but it was all related to some level of personal growth or development or something like that. But this was something that it became a means for me to really process my emotions.
Absolutely.
And for me to be able to think a little bit deeper on how I truly felt and get those things out. What I realized is once you get it out of your head and put it on paper, it becomes more real. And so that definitely allowed me to dive in deeper than I ever really had before, even though I was still in a broken state. And so it wasn't until I got to a place where I was physically able to sort of start getting back to life that I actually started getting some grief counseling and some therapy for myself, for my son, and really, really peeling back the layers of who I was. I had to find out. And in the midst of going through all of that, I realized, and for those of you out there who've been with somebody, married for some period of time, you start to realize that you like to do what y'all like to do, meaning y'all's personalities mesh together. You start doing things collectively. And then when that other person's suddenly taken away from you, you got to kind of rediscover who you are again.
Yes.
I had to go through this journey of, I like to say, rediscover who I was again.
I like it.
And it's different when I was 25 years old when I got married versus being 40 years old when all this was happening. I'm a different man. And the way that I looked at things and went about approaching life was different. Some of the ambitions that I had earlier on, or that I had with Malika, were not necessarily going to be the same things I was going to have as Tiran alone moving forward. And so having to figure out who I was at that point was one of the best and biggest things. And that's where the vulnerability, that's where the authenticity, that's where realizing I couldn't be this shielded individual that's holding everything. I was someone who was stoic, someone who would deal with everybody else's problems, but not really put it on that I had anything that I was dealing with. But it taught me that, hey, look, I got to be real with myself if I want to be able to get through this.
That's right.
I was dealing with pain I never felt before. So,
and I think some of our guests, even in the and you all feel free. Thank you, Marquita, D'Angelo, for tuning in. Coco, thank y'all for tuning in. But if y'all have any questions, please drop them. But it's some people in the chat who probably can relate to some of this as well, because you got to pull from a strength that you never knew you had in these moments, because you're learning to walk again. You're learning. I just can't imagine. I can't wrap my head around it, because that's just a lot to take on and still keep it together. Because when you have children that you gotta, like you said, you told them I'll be all right, but you wasn't sure you were gonna be all right. That's a lot. But I like that you talked about journaling. I'm a journal freak. I just think, yeah, it's so many post-its, notebooks, whatever. I can't even keep up. And that's how I started to write as well, because you had to make room for everything that was going on in your head. And if you don't release that, sometimes it just gets overwhelming. So I love that that's what you did. I just rarely hear men say that they journal.
Yep. And it, like I said, under normal circumstances, I never would have tapped into it, but
Right.
This was part of what changed in me, and me realizing that there is a clarity that comes. There's an ability to truly assess everything, the good and the bad that's going on with us, when we take the time to do that. When we start diving into who we are, it is a way to be able to truly discover where our strengths are, where our weaknesses are, our fears, our concerns, are the things that we feel most confident about. And like I said, this was a rediscovering of who Tiran Jackson was, that I was going through at this stage of my life. And
I like that you mentioned about, because it's true what you said about being, married, and life becomes us. And now you have to learn a whole way of being that's not something that you plan to do. And it's got to be very difficult, being married. I think about that, because it's a very different experience. You think about just a golf trip somewhere else and you're by yourself. It's different. So I just couldn't imagine. Resilience is actually not even a strong enough word for, what you've done. But that was just your first book. So, and because I love one of your other books too, but you did Widowhood and Happily.
Widowhood is for women, men just remarry. So I'm sorry.
I saw that and I was like, that is interesting. I might have to bring you back to talk about that. And the other one is Happily Ever Interrupted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, what is that? I love the title. Absolutely love the title.
And it goes into just when you think that everything is going to be great, perfect, going wonderful, and then what happens? How do you react? How do you respond when everything is all of a sudden taken away from you? Wow. There are people who, I know that the method might be different as far as the way that it happened to me, but there are people every day who all of a sudden, tragically, something happens unexpectedly, and now their life is turned upside down. How do you recover? How do you bounce back? How do you get yourself back together? And within this, I start to go through just some of the steps along the way that I've learned through not just my journey, but also through just understanding how we deal with pain and adversity. Mm-hmm. and how we, and here's my core definition of resilience, because we're going to go through our obstacles, we're going to go through our adversity, we're going to go through our challenges, go through our setbacks. How are we going to leverage and use those to create positive growth as individuals? How are we going to become better as a result of what we've been through? You talked about that inner strength, that untapped strength that I had to find in the midst of going through this. I never would have done it. That authenticity, that realizing my vulnerabilities and being open about it. Those are ways that I change. And now I inspire and show other people, especially Black men, that, hey, it's okay to not be okay with what you're dealing with. And if I'm cracking the door open by sharing what I'm going through, then I'm letting other people push it all the way open, because they can now start to share what they're facing, and we can start talking about really what's going on. So
I love that. And I think, and so I thank you for what you're doing, because I think, you're right that men do, they're very stoic in anything that they're dealing with. They don't feel like they're safe enough to, let it out, and that it is okay to be going through a rough time and just say, hey, I'm struggling with how to deal with this. And I think men do struggle in that area because they want to stay strong for everybody, and make sure that you don't think that I'm weak, and that kind of thing. But what you showed was that there was strength in saying that I need help getting through this. That was the strength. And Marquita actually had a question. She said, well, how is your son?
My son is good. Okay, so my son, he'll be 20 next month, which just goes showing time flies and everything. He is good. We done therapy. Well, we did therapy together for a long time, and then as he was starting to get 17, 18, continued doing it. What all this did was, and we had a great relationship before, but as you can imagine, it pulled us even closer together to have to support one another and be able to help each other get through it. And he's turned into one of the most emotionally mature young men that I've ever encountered. And part of it, I gained strength and resiliency through watching how he was dealing with things. And I'll say this for kids, someone who loses their mother at that age and in school, they don't know exactly how to communicate. So instead of someone saying, my condolences, I'm sorry for your loss, they would say things, look, I'm sorry your mom died. And that would be a trigger to them.
I'm sure.
It would make, and so we had to deal with, the ups and downs that come. But at the same time, his experience was different than mine. The only woman he was ever really close to is all of a sudden taken away while they're on vacation. And now I've got to adjust to life being a young teenager coming and growing. But he has adapted well to the change that has come as a result of everything that had to come with me and the ups and downs there. And but now I was telling somebody this last month, moved him into his own 1-bedroom apartment, which was for me it was different. It's been different.
Yeah.
That was the first time really, that since all of that had happened and all, we have been like living under separate roofs. But I have to also understand that he is now a young man and has to learn responsibility, has to make decisions for himself, has to realize the pros and the cons of certain decisions and understand the consequences. But he's still not too far away from me. We see each other every couple of days still, but it's just, this is the next step in his maturation. And
Absolutely.
for me, it's meant for me to continue moving on with life. Say that I didn't as all of that was occurring, but at some point in time, I had to come to grips with the fact that okay, he's got to explore and live life, for himself too. So I'm a proud dad, just watching him figure it out as he tries to understand where he wants to go and what he wants to do.
Absolutely. And Marquita said, great job, Dad. I was going to say, yes, congratulations to you, because you actually set the example, which it sounds like just provided him with the extra strength that he might not have had to get through this and to move on, to, live life. And you all are closer now. So, I mean, that is just an amazing story of resilience. I mean, like I said, I can't think of a better word at the moment, because that just seems like it's not enough for what you went through. And I love that now there's new purpose and helping other people to get through that, because I do know that survivor remorse is huge. And people don't quite understand. Marquita's in the chat. She said, what a testimony. But her job, I think, is very connected to what you're doing with the therapy and stuff. So I know she's happy to kind of hear how you got through this. But and she's going through some things that might be related. So hopefully at some point, because this is part of what I do too, is hopefully connect people who can, continue to help others, because she helps other people to get through these things too. So definitely hope we can continue to connect and network with one another. But this has been that's
Look, Dr.
I
Lisa, we
know,
hadn't
it's
even
a
touched,
lot.
we just touched the tip of the iceberg. It is so much more that
Yes. Actually, she said this has helped me because I think we had a conversation, which I would love to bring you back on maybe and have Marquita come, because one of the conversations that Marquita might have to help me with remembering, I think, was on what to say to someone who's lost someone. And a lot of times people just get it wrong and it's not intentional.
yeah.
But it's a hard space. Nobody knows what to say, how to say it. And we talked about that. So you mentioned that. And I think that would be a great conversation because people need help in that area. We don't know what to say.
So I'm a certified life coach when it comes to grief recovery and building resilience. And one of the things I talk about is how to be that ally to that person who is going through that grief.
That's awesome.
And a lot of times you're right. People don't know what to say, but there are certain things that we can do to be able to support. We definitely need to be present, to just be there for them. We need to be able to they don't want to necessarily continue to hear about what they're going through. So what can you do to provide a positive distraction, to be able to, and I do this with guys, if it's talking about football or talking about something that's, that ends up starting as the icebreaker to get their mind off of it. And then if that particular person wants to take it back to what they're feeling, then let them do so. But sometimes, definitely thoughts,
That's
prayers,
great.
all of that is a wonderful thing. But there are times when you can talk too much and you can actually trigger people back into an emotional pit. Yeah. And so I think, and I know it's not intentional, but I think that, we can have a whole conversation about
that would, Marquis, I'm about to sign both of y'all up for another conversation with that, because I think it would be very helpful, because I think people would love to hear what can I do when we just don't know what to do. And then when we're in that situation, you don't want to wait till you're in that situation and now you're frustrated and, nobody knows what to say to you. And now you're doing the same thing that someone else is doing. So we'll definitely do that. I wanted to thank you for, again, saying yes. This was an amazing testimony. I do want you to, and I think I had put it on the screen before, but tell everybody where they can go to find you and hear more of your story. He's gonna come back, y'all. He's gonna come back. But where can they find you and get your books and hear more about your journey?
Yes. So my platform is called Reborn Resilient. I help those going through trauma, tragedy, or transition make a transformation in life so they can be triumphant again. So I know it's a lot, but I'm a professional speaker, life coach, and I help those who are trying to get back to life again. If you go to rebornresilient.com, you'll see more about me and what I'm doing out there in the world. You can find me on social media everywhere, either at Tiran Jackson or Tiran Jackson Official. On IG, TikTok, I'm Tiran Jackson Official. On LinkedIn, Facebook, Tiran Jackson. And I strongly encourage you, if you want to know more and you want to read what I was going through, go to choosingresilience.net. A copy of my best-selling book. You'll get a personally signed, autographed version of it shipped to you. But that's where you can learn more about the specifics of really what it takes to make that conscious decision to choose resilience every day, no matter what adversity you're walking through.
Absolutely. I'm definitely going to get a copy, but what you just said was very powerful in that it is a choice. And the reason why that resilience is so important, because you have to choose to move forward. Coco, the Coco Rowe Show is here. Thank you, Tiran. Thank you for sharing. Coco. And you all, he is on TikTok. For those who are on TikTok, that's where I saw him. So please check him out. I will be. I would love to order. I'm going to order too. And I'm definitely going to
order from Amazon. I'm going to tell you that. Go to my site, choosingresilience.net, and order from it there. Yeah,
absolutely, because you need that signature. We talk about that signature on that book too. So yes, I will definitely be placing the order as well with you. I wanted to, before we leave, and we're going to, again, let you know where to find Tiran and his information, but I wanted to share a few things. You all know that I like to find some awareness days of the month. It's just the goofy in me. I don't know what you call it, but today is September 25th. So I usually try to look for some awareness days, something to celebrate. Jermaine actually said, I wish you the best. Thank you so much, Jermaine. Thank you all for tuning in. So I want to give you some days that if it's too late to celebrate today, because we're in, it's 8 o'clock. But remember and put these on your calendar for next time. But I thought these were pretty cool. So if you didn't know, today is actually World Dream Day, which I thought was really cool. Who knew? It's also, if you are a fan of quesadillas, it is National Quesadilla Day. So let that be the reason that you go have quesadillas for dinner. I don't know.
You're making the dinner decision easy for me. So
and it's also remember, I think it says Remember Me Thursday. I'm not sure what that would be. And it's also National Comic Book Day. And for those with the daughter that you just want to do a special shout out to, and I will to, between my husband and I, we have 7 children. So I will do this to all my daughters, but it's National Daughters Day today. So shout out to all the daughters out there. Behave yourselves because mama's watching. But they grown, so they're probably like whatever. But I found some days, and I just wanted to add to that, since I won't be with everybody until next Thursday when we come back again to kick off the month of October. But I wanted to let you keep in mind, Marquita says yes. I wanted to let you know that for tomorrow, okay, because this is ahead of time now. So for tomorrow, you can celebrate Love Note Day. You can also celebrate a Native American Day. That's something that we need to remember. Hug a Vegetarian Day. Never knew there was such a day. It's Human Resource Professional Day, which I actually think is a really good day to celebrate, because I do want to say I retired earlier this year, March, and I came out of Department of Education. It was a total nightmare. I'm still in the trenches with that, y'all, but I keep a smile on my face. But HR was a part of that. Now, I know we weren't always happy with the process. It's been like a nightmare for sure. But I did want to shout out those HR people, because I'm sure this has been a rough year for them as well with what's going on in the world today. So shout out to you all. It's also National Day of Praise and Worship tomorrow, and National Older Workers Employment Week, that I thought was very important, because don't shout out our older workers who are still out there working, whether they have a choice to or not. If you're out there working, more power to you. And tomorrow is when you celebrate them. So if you know someone elderly in your family that's still getting up and going to work every day, just give them a shout out, pay for their lunch, do something. But thank you, Tiran, so much for joining us. I appreciate you. I'm definitely going to get you back here. Because you brought up that topic. See, it's your fault. You brought up the topic that I have been talking about with Marquita. So it's just written there.
It's all good. We can go. We can do this again.
We got to do it.
Audience, your crowd won't mind having me back again.
Absolutely. I did want to make sure I let you all know that I'm an affiliate with Notes to Self Socks, which is I met this woman and her daughter, and they have a business called Notes to Self Socks, and they put positive affirmations and words on socks, which I thought was absolutely cute because I'm a sock lover. So please go out there and grab your socks, and you can go to notes2self.com/POSU, which is for the Power Shut Up, and get your socks. They have Grandparents' Day. If you like pickleball, they have those, but they also have words that are, I am beautiful, I am smart, I am, and I'm going to talk to them about, I'm going to check and see if they got one that says I am resilient. I'm going to check on that one. Because if they have that, I'm gonna have to send you over a pair of them socks. But y'all check those socks out. They're great. I have many pairs. And I wanted to remind you to not give up. Okay. Just don't give up. It's to try for me. If you tried, then you're not giving up. So continue to do that. And I did want to keep you all connected that I will be launching my coaching business called, and I showed my logo last time. I'm pushing this out there, but it's called Launchpad Coaching and Consulting. And really it's going to be about, I'm about communication, but it's going to be about helping people to dive into publishing. As a publisher, I want to show people the ins and outs, the basics. I really want to take people back to basics. if you're trying to start a podcast, you're trying to publish a book, you're trying to write, and you're trying to interview, those kind of things. I've been doing it for many, many years, and I want to actually help other people to get out here and get it done. A lot of times what I'm recognizing is that it's saturated with all this kind of stuff, but I really want to give people things that they never thought about to prepare them to be their best in whatever they do. So that's more to come there. Marquita is clapping hands over here, and the Phenomenal Hawk Company said, awesome. Thanks for tuning in. So until next time, thank you so much again. DeAndre said, thanks, Dr. Lisa and Tiran. So you all please go over to TikTok and check him out. And I'm going to put his website on the screen again. And you all go and cop your books. There are 3 books. And how many books do you have?
Just the 3 right now. I got 2 more that I'm working on though. So yeah.
And they can also book you to speak and things like that. Yeah. So you all check out his website. But the 3 books are, the first one was Choosing Resilience. You all go out there and check that out. Also, Widowhood, which you said is for the women.
Widowhood is for women, men just remarried.
And the men just remarried. Right. And Happily Ever Interrupted. So please go to the website, check those out, get a copy. It also is National Suicide Prevention Month, so please keep that in mind. And I wanted to leave you with this before we say goodnight. I'm trying to leave you with something because we talk about communication. So think about this, James 1:19. This is a New King James Version. So then, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. And this is just a reminder to you all that the Power Shut Up is really about just thinking before you speak. And sometimes you might not need to say anything at all. And that's okay too. So until next Thursday, thank you so much for joining. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Power Shut Up podcast. Tyran, can you stay on for a minute after we end? Yep. And I will see you all next week. Have a good one.
Thank you.